How do you sort out the so-called jargon from real-world practices that work? Do the members of your organization find some business or technology advice utterly confusing? Welcome to Real Talk with Sam Holcman. In this program, we set the record straight, and in terms that business people and technology people can understand. Now, here is your host, Sam Holcman.
Welcome to this edition of Real Talk. I'm Sam Holcman. Thanks for joining me on this particular broadcast. And the topic for this particular broadcast is to-be models or desired state models and as-is models. Which comes first and why? Which comes first and why? A lot of people that practice these architectural techniques suggest that developing an as-is model before a to-be model seems logical on the surface. And that's correct, logical on the surface. Understand where you are, then define where you want to go. Yet, in practice, this approach unintentionally traps organizations with the limitations of their current reality. The deeper issue is not one of modeling techniques, but of human cognition. When people start describing the present, they often lose the ability to imagine the future. This has to do with the human limitations of the as-is first approach. Humans are natural pattern recognizers. When confronted with complexity, our minds look for what is familiar and defensible, and sometimes confirming our biases. The moment we begin to build an as-is model, we validate and reinforce the current logic in our minds, in our systems, its data flows, its organizational silos, and its entrenched processes. Instead of questioning where these constructs should exist, whether these constructs should exist at all, we subconsciously accept them as the baseline truth. This cognitive anchoring affects and becomes a constraint in creativity. Stakeholders reviewing the as-is model invest emotional energy in discussing what is wrong or missing rather than what could be better. The model becomes a mirror of dysfunction, a perfect capture of what should now be left behind. Once the conversation starts from what is, imagination narrows to incremental improvement. The grand vision that architecture is supposed to enable fades into a reformed project, not a transformation. Our practice shows there is a very strong logical case for starting with the to-be first. When we begin with the to-be model or desired state model, if that's more comfortable for you, we force a fundamental shift from analysis to aspiration. Defining the target vision first harnesses the organization's unique human capacity to look beyond what is visible to imagine possibilities unconstrained by existing structures. It reawakens the creative and strategic faculties that separate architectural thinking from operational documentation. Starting with the to-be focuses attention on purpose and intent rather than in problems. It encourages cross-disciplinary thinking by defining desired outcomes before wrestling with current system limitations. It builds intrinsic motivation as participants contribute to designing something better rather than merely describing what frustrates them. Provides a clear standard to evaluate which parts of the current state are worth preserving and which must be reimagined. The as-is model should come after the to-be model is defined as a tool for gap analysis, not discovery. It serves as a comparative instrument, not an anchor. We also have to see beyond what is displayed. Architecture at its core is an act of envisioning. It demands the ability to see not just what exists, but what could exist. This requires resisting the human tendency to treat what is visible today as permanent and legitimate. By beginning with the to be, architects challenge people to momentarily step outside their confines of the visible world, to look beyond the display of their current environment and gauge with potential. Just as great artists paint not what they see, but what they imagine, real enterprise architects and real business architects must model not the current structure, but the future state that gives purpose and coherence to change. The as-is is only a shadow of the past. The to-be, a light that guides the transformation. Remember, the windshield on an automobile is 96 times bigger than the rearview mirror. That ratio may suggest that you should spend 96 times the amount of time looking forward than you do glancing back. And the better you look forward, the better you're off in driving first. The analogy holds. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Talk. Be sure to join your host, Sam Holcman, again for another edition of our program. We'll have more real topics of discussion then.